So yesterday, B'siyata D'Shmaya, yesterday, we learned the Rashbam. And the Tosfos, what's the answer of the Gemara? The Gemara answers that why a Bechor, the firstborn son. Oh, you found the Kilat Yaakov?
כן, כן. זה מהחתן שלך, הוא ילמד אתמול. כן.
בוקר אור.
מה זה ספר?
Okay, very good. I have to print it out to everyone to learn this one.
Which one is that?
This is the Kilot Yaakov. It's a famous Kilot Yaakov.
I thought you had one in the Line Macomb.
No, it's not printed. I knew it by heart for years and years, but I didn't know. What?
You have a small one that's printed? Part of one in this Line Macomb?
No, not at all.
No? Oh.
It's not at all. It's very famous, this Kilot Yaakov. But somebody here, my son-in-law, when he printed out for us,
Which
רק
one?
אחד, אבל צלצל רק לא...
we have to make a copy. What?
Chaim?
Chaim, yes. So now the yeshiva and the Israeli, I brought down this Kilot Yaakov by heart, and I gave them my own answer here. But that is, we have to learn inside. We'll learn the next coming days with Rasha we'll learn. So let's go over. We learned the Rashbam and Tosfos, and the Rashbam seems to be saying that Makir Kuna means that the friends, relatives, and lovers of the Kohen, and the Mezake Loi Bezikui Gomu, Gomu Maknu. Those are the language that Rashbam brings down. The Mezake Loi Bezikui Gomu, and later on he says, use the word Gomu Maknu. They made a decision, Kamil's Das, to makne, to acquire it. Bezikui with a zikui. By the way, this machine is not started, didn't start yet. Let's see if it works. Good morning. Alechem Shalom. Let's see, it works. Rebbe, we're going to be working on the Ketzois and the Sivas Kavachuri.
I saw the Tosfos and the Rashbam.
Very good. Now you should see the Ketzois, the Sivas Kavachuri, printed here.
I don't have any papers.
I'll give you.
Are there papers?
Sure. Here. One of the papers. This one is it. Okay, you got it. Wrong papers, I see. This. You know what it means? It means that I took the wrong frak. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Good. So we learned the Rashbam and Tosfos. The Rashbam seems to be saying that who was maknet to him zikui gomo, a complete zikui, and Tosfos, we medaik in Tosfos, that Aaron, oh, that's good. We have reception here. I thought you have to go outside. I thought we need to go outside. We have reception, Hashem. Just doesn't start. Oh no. Good. Baruch Hashem. Yes. Normally, there's no proof of the word zikr what it means, but later on, he says clearly that it's goma umakne. So he talks about akna, acquiring. Akna means to acquire. Goma umakne, he says the words of the Rashbam. We only had the first Rashbam, zikri gomu, we don't know what it means. It says Goma umakne, they finish in their mind, Gvirus das, the makne, they acquire, and they acquire. They finish their mind and they acquired. That's the language. Goma umakne. Goma umaknu. They made this final decision and they acquired. That says pass. That means that processed through, went through the acquisition. So it seems to be from the Rashbam. There's a real kinyan. Now, what?
What other Rashbam is? What is this?
Third line from the big lines. Look at the third line. That's our problem. Where's the Maisa? It's not clear where's the Maisa. We don't. Do we need a Maisa or do you don't need? Normally you need. The normal circumstance. You see 3 lines from the big lines. Gomu maknu lamatonis. Sheilu avov gomu maknu lamatonis shenadayin betoch habeim. He says gomu maknu. Have both languages. And Tosfos we medayik the same thing. Tosfos says makiri kahuna, family friends of kahuna is considered that the father is memוחזק, and because the reason is because the Jewish people which owned the cow, they obligated themselves. It's like a matona muetas, because the free choice to give what they want is like a small gift. And when somebody is obligated himself to give a small gift, he's not allowed to retract, even with words. So you want to say makir kun is a kind of a promise that you're not allowed to retract. If you do retract, you could, but as long as you retract, there's a prohibition.
But that doesn't make you kinyan.
It doesn't say. But then later on, he says that we made a diuk. And so the first part of Tosfos looks like Tosfos arguing the Rashbam. But the last 2 lines of Tosfos says, and we talk about that the animal was shechted, was slaughtered in the time of the father's life. And Tosfos says if it wasn't so, it wouldn't work. Because since he died, who's going to be zoiche? So it seems to be that he is zoiche. Zoiche what? Zoiche means it is ownership. The father is zoiche. So you see Tosfos also talking about the reason why he's not zoiche is the father marries before he died, when it was slaughtered before he died. Why is zoiche? Because there's a prohibition to retract. That's the reason why he's zoiche. So he is zoiche. What's
beginning says Muzak, then it says
what?
beginning says Muzak.
No, Muhzak means Muhzak. Muhzak is what you own. It's not a stira. Just the concept is a stira, not the words. Concept. Because normally when I say I have a prohibition to retract, but if I retract I could, seems to be what? It's just a prohibition. It's not really ownership. Right. And then he says, no, it was slaughtered in the time of the father, otherwise it wouldn't zoiche. Because the father was zoiche what? Just a prohibition. It's very weird. So it's unclear. I'm going to have to start learning a little bit more and see what all the Achronim speak about it. The Ketzoris, the Sives, Kilot Yaakov. What? Right? But then later on, Toysa says the word Yizke. Yizke. Kevan Shemes, mi Yizke, Toysa says. If it was not slaughtered at the time of the father, and the father died, who's going to merit it to give it over to the kids? But since it was slaughtered at the time of the father, so the father merits it in order to give it over to the kids. He seems to be saying that the father merited those gifts. He is calling it. What?
You have to say this daf kamat school.
Yeah, but the
let's say we matona muetes, not that school.
Yeah.
Not that school. Like the Gimor and like the Gimor.
Gimor Metzia. Yeah.
So Ashbam, the Rashi doesn't say that because of the Chashves, Lashamla, there's Mishum Chosamon. Not because of Yezoiche, because of Chosamon.
Still doesn't make a kinyan.
Here, somehow, Tosha says because of the prohibition to retract, so therefore the father is Zoiche. How does it work? Why it works? Will be my matonu muetes. If I promise matonu muetes to someone and the person dies, a person promised to the father matonu muetes, a small gift. So he has a prohibition to retract, and he dies. Does the firstborn son will take a double share in it? Tosha says yes, because since matnas kun is like a matonu muetes and the prohibition to retract, so therefore the king would work. That's what he seems to be saying.
There doesn't work with no schia.
Oh, unless you say.
No schia.
Why not? Not to get a gift is not a zechia.
You only say with the words, only at voting. It's not. There's no.
Yeah, but the question if
there.
a gift in S is not a zechia.
What?
Gifts is a zechia. A gift is a zechia. To give me a gift.
Words, it's not a kinyan.
So what? Well, we also hear so many words.
No, it's like a kinyan.
Where's the kinyan?
No more makro with a kinyan.
Can we say?
Also, matanu muetes maybe come on.
Can we say that?
No makro is with a kinyan.
Can we say that the schia he gets, but when he grabs the meat, then that's a kinyan?
Yeah, but we're saying that before the father died, he was
has a
zoiche.
schus only. He has a schia. He doesn't have a kinyan yet.
He's zoiche.
He has a zoche. Okay.
How is zoiche? Zoiche what?
You're entitled to. I'm entitled to grab this thing because you promised me in promise my father. So I'm entitled to. You're entitled.
You're zoiche the
kinyan.
promise.
You're entitled. You're what?
I'm zoiche, I'm entitled to the promise.
No, you're entitled to the food.
To the promise? It's only a promise. It's only aftacha. How does it turn to ownership?
Yeah, you're right. It's not
So the father owned it or didn't own it? Yes or no?
He was
Did the
entitled.
Kohen that gave to all the time have a hazaka?
Entitled doesn't mean he's
The
zoiche.
Kohen that kept getting it, he has a hazaka after 2 times. 2, maybe 3 times, according to we can toss him 2 times.
Yes.
He has a hazaka.
Good.
Yeah, but still. No, it's only entitled.
Zoka that will get it, but now did he get it right now? Does he own it or not?
He could take it, and he couldn't give it, and they couldn't force him to give it back unless he wanted it.
It's like when you have money that you are entitled to, and then it's still not yours, but when you go to the thing and you get the money, then you have the kinyan. It's the same thing here.
Yeah, but
you're entitled to the matano, and it's still not yours. When you grab it, it's yours.
so it's very strange that you can moirish, you can give over something which you are entitled to,
Why? They do it all the world every day.
and it's called muhzak.
Your mozak in the entitlement, that's for sure. It's your entitlement.
More than that. If somebody promises you and he's not allowed to retract, but if he retracts, you're not going to get it. You can't demand it. What does it mean? If he wants, he could retract. What does that mean if he wants, he could? Means you cannot demand it.
Right, absolutely.
Why not? That's you entitled.
Caused by the return.
Because
The
the Torah
entitlement
is still
comes from
his.
his dibur.
What?
Torah is still the owner's.
Right?
But
So it seems to me he didn't give it over. So where's
You're
it?
right, you're
So
right.
where? What?
The kinyan part you didn't give over. You only promised. So the word.
So you promised. I'm entitled to. That's how I answered you. I'm entitled to a promise. Entitled to promise nothing. As Shamir said, I promised, but I didn't promise to keep. הבטחתי, אבל לא הבטחתי לקיים. Between promise and I went to America now to fundraise money. Until now, we didn't get any money. Already how long the past? A week and a half.
You're destroying the Tosfot, my dear. If you say that.
But that's the same. You cannot remove from the simple svara. But that's a simple svara. To explain this, we have to explain. You can't change the normal logic.
I know, I understand.
Yes, Aaron, one second.
If you hold the Sefer Torah, it permits me something.
Yes.
You swear on the Sefer. Can I comment on that?
If somebody swears at a Sefer Torah to give someone an object, and then a person dies, can he inherit that promise to his kids?
Yes.
That's Lichoiro seems to be saying in Tosfos. That's what Tosfos is saying. That's what seems to be Tosfos saying. But the question is why? How can... I'll read you the language of the... I just saw now... what's his name? The Kilot Yaakov, the stipend. Right, you should. והנה דברי הקצועס החוישה עם חידוש גודל ומטמיע. It's a big חידוש and a big wonder. דגם מה שלא הויו ממוי נדעה בישש בלתוסוי. Even something which is not the money of the father in the time of his death. כיוון שהקולפוני מוחזקו, since he's holding it, he is entitled, ומוצוי תכף ליטלון and is very calm and right away to take it. And the kids take it because of the promise of the father. In exchange of the father's entitlement. A Bechor will take double in it. It's a big Kiddush. Doesn't make sense, he says. It's a very big Kiddush. We'll see. That's why a lot of people don't learn like this. But the language in Tosfos says Yiske. We say Yiske entitlement. Or Yizechir means you zoicha the object. But how can you zoicha the object when Tosfos says that he can retract? So we have really, in logic, we have a contradiction here. Because in the end of Tosfos seems to be that the father merited. Normally merit means you merit an acquisition. You merit the object. But before he said there's only a promise, which now there's a prohibition to break. But if you broke, you cannot demand it. It means that you didn't acquire, because if you acquire it, how can you retract? I can demand. Acquisition means there's a cut. Before it's yours, now it's mine. It's ownership.
If he wants to retract, he can tract. On the other hand, if the coin grabs it, he can't take it back.
That's also true.
So that's,
but that's when the coin grabbed it. But before the coin grabbed it. Right. Tosfos wants to say that the father zoich in it and he gives it over to the kids, and the bone gets double. How does it work?
But he does have a hazaka after 2 times of getting it.
Not losing.
Right? According to the Gemara, he has a hazaka of getting it.
He will lose.
Yes, he's muhzak.
He's muhzak.
Muhzak on what? On a promise and a
I
title.
don't see really a kasha in Tosfos.
Why?
Because when you have an entitlement, you can retract. That's exactly the point of entitlement. That's why it's not a kinyan. That's why it's called an entitlement. I can switch. The government said you're entitled X. For COVID, they gave 700 shekel to everybody. You are entitled 700 shekel. But if the next minute decide we mevatel this law, finish, it's gone. But while you were entitled, if you had it in your hand, that's when the kinyan happens. What's the problem? No problem anymore.
So you give over to the firstborn son, double share in what?
In the entitlement. You are entitled.
So entitlement is mean you don't own any money.
It's a zchut that I could. It's like almost it is allowed. I could get this money if I go to the bank and grab it. It's still not mine, but I'm entitled to it. So now I die, it goes to my kids. It's actually what's happening in the law everywhere, most of in the world. No more law. That's it. It's an entitlement. You can give. It's something. It's not nothing. And you can retract. You can retract. If the Baal Davar can retract anytime he wants. But obviously, he has the obligation. That's why there's no value to that.
It's a very big chiddush to say that you give over something you don't own monetary.
Right.
There's no monetary ownership. You give it over. That's a big chiddush. That's what the chiddush. That's why. By the way, the chiddush like this. We're going to see right now.
Okay.
And the chiddush says it's chiddush godel tzorich. Doesn't make sense. Big chiddush. Let's see now the chiddush inside. What? Where Toysa says he grabbed it? Who said so? What are you talking about? There's nothing about grabbing. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Where I read the word that he grabbed it? No, I didn't say that. Rabbi Yoshua has mentioned the Toysus and Bomitzia Dafar that Makiri Kuno is entitled to grab. That's all it says there. It's not our sugya. We want to use that, the fact that if he grabs, he cannot take it away. That social kind of ownership before. That's only a test case. It's not our case here. Okay. Let's see the Gemara in Perek Azov. It's printed in the papers. You see here, it says number 1, number 2. Number 2 is Shitas HaToysos. We'll learn the Gemara in Azov. Ochanam Nistabra. You have it there?
Yeah.
Very good. Ochanam Nistabra. The Omar Rabbi Avo, Omar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Avo said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Israel she'omar leben Levi. A Jew, Israel, a Jew that is Israel, that said to a ben Levi, to a son of Levite, Kur maaser yesh lecho biyod. The Jew told the ben Levi, I have in my hands a kur of maisa. Means a whole big pile of maisa to give you. Or from the kur I'll take off maisa. I took off maisa. And that maisa is the volume of kur, which is a lot. So then, Ben Levi, once the Jew promised the Ben Levi to give him the maisa that he took off. So we were talking about that the Jew already separated. The soil separated from his fruits. Look in Rashi. I already took off maisa from my fruits, and I want to give it to you. So Israel tells the Ben Levi, I took off maisa from my pile of fruits, and I want to give it to you. So then what?
We didn't give it.
He didn't give it yet. So what's the halacha? So then, Ben Levi Rashai, the son of Levi, is permitted la'asoiso, to make it terumas meiser al mokum acher.
What is she
Where?
What? The first word in the Rashi you brought.
Sheisarti, that I took off meiser.
Isarti.
Meiser, the word maaser. Sheisarti, that I took off maaser, comes from the word eser, 10th. That I took off 10% mi peroisai from my fruits, and then I'm going to give it to you. So then let's go back to the Gemara. Ben Levi Rashai, the son of Levi, is permitted la soto, to make it terumas meiser al mokum acher, is allowed to take off terumat maaser. And another place, what does that mean? Let's see Rashi. Terumas meiser. Sha'alevi mafrish, the Levi, when he receives 10%, he needs to separate maaser 10% out of the 10% he receives, which is 1% on the total whole. He gives a mafrish maaser lekohen, he gives 10% of what he got to a kohen. Maaser in a maaser, a tenth from a tenth. Which means when the Jew has a pile of fruits, he needs to take 10% to the Levi. And the Levi from what he received, he takes 10% out to the Kohen.
That's 1%.
What?
That becomes 1%.
1% of the total.
What's makom acher?
So the Ben Levi is allowed to make what he received, even though he didn't receive it in his hands yet. He didn't receive his hand yet, his hands, but still, he acts as if he received it. And he's allowed to take off from it, Trumas Meiser, Al Mokremacher. Let's say the Levi has more fruits that he needs to take off, he has to take off Trumas Meiser to the Kohen. He says, you know what? I'm not going to take from my pile, the 1%, the 10% of what I got. I'm going to take from what you gave me. It means he already makes business in it, deals. It's a Jew, huh? It's not a Jew, it's a Jew Ben Levi.
This is how the
Stock market.
Stock market.
Kind of stock market.
Yes. The Gemara now asks, if you're going to say that the rule by a small gift, by a small gift you're not allowed to retract, then it makes sense, this law, Mishumochi, therefore makes sense, therefore, Rashai, the Ben Levi is permitted to right away to act as if it's his, and take off my Tumas Meiser on that, on another pile, for another pile, as if it's his. Elo Yamr is rather you're going to say, that it's possible to retract. Who? The Israel can retract, so it's a gift that you can retract. Amai Rashai. Why the Ben Levi is allowed already to take off Tumas Meiser on it? He has another pile and he says, the 10% that he take off from this pile to the Kohen, I'm really going to take from what he promised me, as if it's his. What do you mean? The gift was a conditional gift. He can retract. Maybe the person will retract, and it comes out that the Levi is eating tevel because he never took off Tumas Meiser to the Kohen because the guy retracted, so it never took effect. Right? Possibility. So it comes out that if you will exercise that possibility, we'll eat veiling. So how can we lie and do that? So the Gemara answers, Ocho b'mayaskina. There's no proof from here. There's no proof. Why? Because could be there's no lie here. Maybe here it means that the Jew, the Ben Levi actually did pick it up. He did a ma'asekin, he picked it up. So she went back. He says, I don't have space in my house. So he did, you keep it. And he went back and he deposited back hand by hand. No, this is not a good answer. Yochim a sefer, let's read the end. No, so the Ben Levi acher, if I give it to another Ben Levi. Which means if the owner wants to retract and give it to another Ben Levi, ein lo olav el ta'aroimus. He only has complaints that you promised me, you didn't keep the promise. You promised, but you didn't promise to keep. You didn't keep.
You keep your word.
So he has complaint against it. If you want to say, that he really picked it up, he did a ma'asekin. And he went back in the deposit, how can he retract that he only has complaints? He can demand it. Why when he has complaints, since he did a mashich on it, he has money by him. Must be, you have to say, but the law, no, he didn't pick it up. And Shmamina that he has a prohibition to retract. And on the base that it's a small gift and he has a prohibition to retract, is considered the money of the Ben Levi, is the mohzak that he already can take off, do business on it. He can take off Tumas Meiser and Mokemacher on that promise.
Okay.
Wow.
And there's no kinyan.
And
There's no kinyan.
What's the significance between big or small gifts?
What's the significance between a small or big gifts?
I mean, it says that if it's a small gift, and
so Rashi will explain why he is a small gift.
It can't be a big gift. It's a big gift that
We'll
doesn't
see.
apply.
Rashi will explain why here, even though it's a big pile of fruits, cool, you know it's cool. It's 30 sack, a big pile of fruits, of grains, whatever it is. So Rashbam says because it's only my choice to give it to someone. So that ownership is Rashi says it. I said the Rashi. I said Rashbam by mistake. I meant Rashi.
You have a choice.
So let's see the Rashi. Let's see the Rashi inside.
You have a choice also with a big gift. Like a father gives a big gift as an inheritance. It's his choice.
No. It's his choice, but he also has ownership.
So
Here, the Maaser you have to take off of your money. It's not yours.
So that's God.
You just have free choice to give to who you want. To which Talmid Chacham, which Yeshiva, which Levi, which Kohen. But it's not yours.
So it's a small gifted percentage of the fact that it's 10% or whatever it is.
No. That 10% could be a very big amount.
But that's still
10% of what?
I know, but that still means a small gift.
10% of $1 million, $100,000, a lot of money.
But that's still considered a small gift.
Right.
Why? Because it's not yours at 10%.
Not yours to start with.
Not yours.
So really you
Not yours.
You could be
You
forced.
only have free choice to choose. Like, give here, give here.
So really you could be forced to give it to someone because it's not
Yes.
yours.
It's like they come. How do I fundraise money from rich guys? So listen, you anyhow need to give taxes. It's not yours. It belongs to the government. So why to give it to the American government? Give it to yeshiva and get tax deductible. You get deductible of your taxes.
Deducting from the taxes?
Yes.
You don't tell them it's a matana meudet. It's nothing.
Before I gave, I licked them like it's a big matana. After they gave, I said, listen, you're a bum, you didn't give Hazar. You gave me a small gift. I'm joking. But the truth is, it's matana muetes. But it's a matana.
Yeah.
And I tell them, once you promise, you cannot retract. It's a prohibition. Right? Prohibition. But it's a double prohibition. Number one is a prohibition. That's by a small gift. But he is also charity. It's like a neder. So there's the two reasons why I'm out to retract by charity. One is it's charity, b'fichas u'tzedakah. Whatever comes out of your mouth by charity is like a vow, neder. Plus is a b'chusar amana. The promise you have to keep.
So then it's a
What was the second reason there?
Matona muetes is a small gift. Because mice is not yours. Mechusar amana. That's the Gemara Hilma Metzia. You get curse. Curse, whatever. It's a prohibition. They learn from apostle that you have to keep your words.
The definition of a small gift is something that's not yours and you give it.
Yes, there's in your choice. You are a clerk. You can decide who to give it to. It's not yours.
Can you say the same thing in tzedakah? That Hashem orders you to give tzedakah.
Why politicians become very rich?
Because they do
They take advantage of what is in their choice who to give the money. Really. And people have to fill their pockets with a lot of money to make them, no, really true. To make them the choice to stream the money to you, to your congregation and your yeshiva, your organization, your whatever institution.
How else do you think America's falling? It's that way. That's the issue.
Yes.
The Biden family has so much money that they can control whatever they want to control by giving so much money to someone.
Yes,
right away,
that's what it
off
is.
the top.
That's what it is.
So somebody who
So
promised
next-
tzedakah, he has a mishapara?
What?
Is somebody in the street asking for money, and you have an obligation to give him the money.
Right.
Does he have a mishapara? Can he choser bo? Do you have a mishapara on this?
If you promise him, he can't. If you promise to give a poor person money, you have to give.
You have to give.
For two reasons. First of all, it's a vow. Tzedakah. Tzedakah is like a vow. Number two, it's a small gift you have to give.
And you have a mishapara on it.
Sure. That's what it says here.
So,
That's what we're learning.
so then the next part of this whole thing is that
That's the halacha, by the way. This is the halacha. This is the most halacha.
in your
Yes.
charity case, when
Yes.
you're asking for charity and they promise and they can't go
Yes.
back, and just probably like this case also, they
I have
once you hear it,
few guys have promised me millions of dollars, nothing happened.
Yeah. So
Okay? They don't care about the prohibition.
I know from the Rebbe
Yes.
that why was it such a big deal to promise? Is because he's relying on that and he's already spent that money.
You're right. The Rebbe used to stand and says, once he promised me, he has a potential. I get the money. He already borrowed the money and used it. He says, as long as there's a potential as a side, because the guy promised, he really considered it as if he has in his hands. And he gave double share. That's what it says here. You can moirish it.
He leveraged it. He used
Yeah,
that
leveraged it,
for
yes. Mishum letzidei Rashi. Mishum mochi rashai. Rashi then bo metzia. Therefore he's permitted. Sheyesh loy lismoich. The Levi can rely on the promise. How can he rely on the promise? Because he's not relying on the promise. He's relying on what it says in the Torah. Al masha kosher, what it says in Tzfanya 2, Tzfanya 3. She'erit Israel, the leftover of the Jews, the relics, leftover Jews. Lo yasu avla, they won't make any. What's the word avla? No. Corruption, maybe corruption. They won't make any corruption. Velo yedabru kazav, and they won't speak lies. So if you're a Jew, you have to keep your words. So since the Israel promised me the gifts, so Rashi says, I can rely on it. Sheyesh lo lismach, I can rely on it.
It's not doing business.
That's very weird, business way.
No, yeah, it's not the going way, but it's the Jewish way.
It's sweet
Once you
to
tell
believe
me-
that the Jews are. It's very sweet, kafkul.
Velo yitnenu lelevi acher. And he wouldn't give it to any other Levi.
Maybe he won't give Bechlal.
What?
יכול
Maybe
לחזור
he
בו.
won't give Bechlal.
יחזור
He
לחזור.
can rely on it, he's not going to give it to anybody else.
No, but maybe he won't give Bechlal.
No, but
He can't, he has to give.
Maybe he won't give.
He said then all his fruits were rotten, not going to give it.
you could also say that
Can only
the
decide
value
to
of a
leave it.
mitzvah, and I want to do the mitzvah as soon as possible. So let me give it to the first Levi I see. I need to get rid of this anyway. Let me get rid
But he
of
gave it, he promised it as Levi.
any Levi I give.
She can rely, he's not going to give it to any other Levi. Ve'o maton lemuetasi. Oh, this is for you. This 10% is a small gift. What do you mean? It could be 10% of what? It's relevant. 10% of what is the total whole? Is just relevant. Why is it considered a small gift? She'ein li'Yisrael b'maiser zeh. The Jew doesn't have in this maiser ela tovasano. You hear this, Rabbi Yoshua? Only tovat hana. What is tovat hana? Benefit of pleasure that he can choose who to give it to. She'oyo beyoda was in his hands, mitchil in the beginning. Lo says to give echol ben Levi shir to any ben Levi he wants. That's what he had. He had the free choice to choose the Levi. That's some kind of a benefit. You see, politicians make a lot of money out of
Right.
that.
Because the check is ready already.
But it's called maton muetas. You tell the politicians it's a small gift. But small.
That's how they feel.
Now they feel it's a big matan. They demand a big gift back.
It's a bribe.
All right? But it shouldn't be so. Anyhow, when you have a choice who to give, that's called maton muetas. And you can rely that he won't retract. But if you retract, ein lo olav, ein lo leben Levi rishon al Yisrael zeh, the first Ben Levi doesn't have on this Jew ela ta'aroimes, just to complain. Shifticho, you promised, betocheles nechzoba, with hope, false hope. Ela shma mino, beloinot lo must be. The Gemara brings a proof that I didn't pick it up physically and give it back. Actually, it was promised. This is the point. That when somebody promises me a small gift, there is a prohibition. It's called mechusar amona, prohibition of a lack of belief.
Why the Rashi says it betchila? So Rashi says, "Kol etor no shoyer betchila." Mashu the coin grabs
It's
it.
right now. He can't
The
retract.
coin grabs it. So then he loses it to himself.
No, before I promised, I have the free choice to give it when I want. Once I promise, it's finished. So
What is betchila?
before.
What before what?
I think the promise. Before he promised.
Before you decide.
Before he promised, but you can give it to anyone.
But you just said if he retracts, the Levi doesn't have any case.
What?
But if the
Right.
guy retracts, he doesn't have
If the Jew retracts, the Levi doesn't have any monetary claim. Only taroimes only complains, not claims. You know what the complaint and claims?
Mishapa is not that small.
Mishapa, yes, but not monetary or prohibition.
What did you say was big toklas?
Tocheles means hope. Nichzova false hope.
Which means that this is saying that it's based on a kinyan. The lady has to still make a kinyan, not on a problem.
What?
So what this is really saying is that there needs to be a kinyan there.
Correct.
Or else it's nothing.
It says here that when I promise something, it's very strange. What does it say anymore? Let's go over. Let's analyze what it says in the Gemara. The Gemara says here that maaser that you need to give to the Levi, 10% of the Jew needs to give to the Levi. If he promises to one Levi, it's called a small gift. That is a prohibition to retract. It's called mechusar amana. It's a prohibition, real prohibition. But if I retract, who's he? If the Jew retracts, the Levi cannot demand any. He just has complaints with no demand because it's a promise. Yet it says here that on the base of that promise, if he doesn't retract, the Levi already can start do business on it, and he can take off Tumas Meiser on another pile he has, and he wants to gain money. So let's say that Ben Levi has his own field, and he has a big pile, he received 10% for somebody else. He needs to take 10% out of that to the coin. He says, no, I want that whole pile for myself. I'm going to take the 10% I need to give here from that crop. And that crop needs 10% too, so I'll take more. But everything will come out of that share. But this, I will leave for myself. So he's already taking off myself as he's doing business on it. But it's not his yet. So how can he take off Truma and Meiser and eat the fruits before he actually received it? When a person can retract, he doesn't have any monetary claim on it.
You should really just because he designate part of it in his head and eat from it.
What?
Leave over. He could designate part of it in his head and leave over. And just eat from it.
So,
it's only because he's...
One second, you said something else. Let's say a person wants to drink a big barrel of wine. And he take off mice. He says, I will drink, I have in mind whatever's left over in the end. I'm going to take off a mice and truma. And he drinks. Shayla yesh breira or not, because it's liquid, it moves around. But according to Rameh, or those that hold this breira, they hold that you could do it. But already designate something. Here...
They were on a boat. They took Meiser from another place.
Right, but they owned it. Here, you don't own it, just a promise. So you can take off Meiser and eat on a promise that maybe will happen, it will retract, and it will be tevel. But we say no. As long as he can rely, they won't retract. But how Lemaisi can eat? Because he can rely. Because he's designated on the future. So it comes out that you're eating your other pile, and you took off Meiser on a promise you can rely on, but did it happen right now?
At what point can you not retract?
What happened to this? You can rely on what? You can rely on Hubam Begazel. That's what you can rely on.
At what point?
Switch the whole system, everybody's beautiful.
No, he's not saying that. It says majority of sinners is Gezel. But he doesn't say majority of Jews are sinning.
Where did he say that?
Huban Begezel. Most of the sinners...
Wait a second, when do you get that? And when he says
You want to say most of the Jews, you can't... Otherwise, you can't say it any other way. You can't say most of the Jews are robbers.
Why not? That's what the Chazal
Well, Chazal.
And when they say Kulam Be'avat
It's Lashon Hara,
and
Lashon
when they
Hara.
say Kulam Be'avat
No, it's there. Kulam means Kulam.
He's splitting. And therefore, it includes even the Chachamim who said that thing. They're also still Lashon Hara because they're making Israel look bad. That's what you said. That doesn't work like that.
At what point can he not retract? At what point can he not retract his promise?
You can't say that people rob, most of the Jews are robbed, so you can't have any business. If most of the people are robbers, there's no rules and regulations. It's not possible to say so.
My question is,
It's in certain cases.
after a promise is given,
Yes.
what's the time period of no longer being able to retract on the promise?
Toch kedei dibur.
So, Shalom Rabbi.
Yes, Shalom Aleichem Rabbi.
So once that happens, then the lady can then act business on it?
Yes, that's what it says here.
That's a big deal, because then it's not an empty promise, because if the lady then goes and does business on that, now he has a monetary claim.
No, that's what we're saying. He has a monetary plan on it,
If you say you can't
but there's no monetary claim on it. He can rely that monetary promise will come to fruition, and he's acting upon it.
So once he
There's
acts
not
upon
really,
it,
there's no real ownership on it.
So once he acts upon it,
It's stocks, future stocks.
once he acts upon
The
it,
future has money. He is not.
once he acts upon it, the lady,
Yes.
and he spends it, he
Yes.
cannot claim it back. He's got to figure another way to pay.
Thank you.
I don't know. Once he acts upon it, he's stuck. So the guy will retract. He has to find out somewhere else to do it. He eats veiling. Is what he did, Mai says, going to be broken off. If he doesn't, since the Jews are allowed to retract, so it comes out that what he took off Maisa on it was a mistake. He relied on it, he's allowed to rely on it, but if he retract, it was a mistake. So you have to find somewhere else to take off Maisa.
So really,
What's
you shouldn't do business on it. You should go and pick it up right
He's
away.
allowed to do business on it because he can rely that the Jew's not going to do a prohibition and retract. But if he did, it's a mistake.
So
and he
now
has
in
to
our-
take
so
off
now in
Maisa.
our case-
Or somewhere else, and he's stuck.
So now in our case, it's even stronger then, because he's already given it to him multiple times, so the reliance on that promise
Or
is
in
even
our
stronger.
case, there was no promise. But since it's a family friend, it's as if like a promise. And it's a small gift that the promise works, and now to retract. That's what Tosha says. That's just a prohibition. It's exactly how it is. When Tosha says by us, V'ainu time ashu maton muetes, he says, and our Tosha, shezeu, matnot kuna, it is, maton muetes, a small gift. That's exactly what Tosha says by us. That Chazor L'chaim V'kei was a gift of Kohanim. It's a small gift. Maton muetes. Also, Lachzor, you're not allowed to retract. Even words in general. He says, even if he wants, he could retract. In any place, as long as he retract, the Ben Levi is muhzak, the Kohen is muhzak, and he inherit that to his kids. May I understand to take off my son, and I can understand. Because I'm allowed to take the chance, even though it's not yet mufrosh. But here, how can you give it as inheritance? It's considered muhzak, and you give inheritance something you don't own. That's very strange.
So when those loved ones are around when they do the sacrifice,
Yes?
that would then, in essence, be the chance that the person who promised it would have a chance to retroact, was be able to retract his promise.
Yes.
As he's slaughtered and the friends are there. You
Yes.
say, actually, I don't want to give it to your father.
You could.
And after it, because he didn't, we can assume that
Not because he did it, because he has a prohibition not to do, not to give. So therefore, it's considered the father has some kind of hold on it, and he can give it over to his kids.
But we
And
still
the
have,
Bechor will get a double share.
but we still have to get rid of the problem of he doesn't retract.
He doesn't?
Even though he has a prohibition, we still have to get rid of the possibility that he could retract from his
No.
promise.
You don't have to get that. It exists. He could retract. But
But
yet,
he doesn't.
he didn't. But he could. That argument shows it's a proof that the father really owned it monetary. But he's holding of it, and he's giving over to his kid a double share in it. So, according to what we just said now, if that's pshat, this is a simple pshat in Tosfos, right? That's the way the choice is going to learn. It's hard, but that's a simple what it says. According to this, we do have a machlokes Rashbam and Toises. Because according to the Rashbam, he actually did acquire it. He acquired it zikui gomu. Mizakul zikui gomu makule. So they made a kinyan to him. According to Rashbam, there was a monetary acquisition of the father before he died. When there was a problem, and it was slaughtered in his lifetime, he actually owns it. Just the chiddush is that although it was not separated from the animal, you still can own it. You still can have a zikui gomo because it's considered as if it was separated. It's a chiddush, okay. But according to Toisves, you don't have to come out to the chiddush is that that is as if it's separated. That's simple. Not that we have to hold that opinion. But the big chiddush is here that although the father doesn't own it, he just has a promise. He's considered muhzak, and he's zoiche that promise, and he gives over that promise to his kids, even though there's no monetary ownership. It's a very big chiddush. So let's see the Ktois HaChoshen. That's what comes out, yes. This is what comes out. It's very hard, but let's see. Mikre muhzak, mesupkani. I'm reading the Tzois HaChoshen. Tzois HaChoshen, Simen Reish Ein Chet. Mesupkani be'echot shenishba liten maton lechaveru. I have a doubt if one person made an oath. Nishba, is what nishba means? What does nishba mean? He took an oath. Be'echot shenishba, one took an oath. Litein maton lechaveru, to give a gift to his friend. Chefetz ploini, a certain object. Umeisa mekabel, and the receiver died. Koidem, before shegiya maton, before the gift came to his hands. Someone promised and took an oath to give a gift to his friend. And before he gave it over, the person died. The giver died. The receiver died.
So our question will be whether or not their children get it.
Exactly. Does the bechor gets double or not? Im ave roi legabe bechor is considered ra'ui, reference to the firstborn son. He doesn't get double. Came the shvuah no isakin, since oath doesn't make an acquisition.
Which before should you reading?
The Ktsos HaChoshen.
Which then gives us a
Third line. Or name are we going to say? Kevan, since he needs to fulfill his oath. V'asur lo lachzor, and it's prohibited for him to retract. The object that I promised, I took an oath to give, is like he's a holder of it. Relationship. He has a holder in it. Doesn't own it, but he's a holder. Or no? Again, what's the doubt? When I took an oath to give an object as a gift, so I have a prohibition to retract, but there's no kinyan. So therefore, the firstborn will not get double on it because the father never owned it to give it over as an inheritance. So no, you don't need. As long that he needs to fulfill his oath and he's not allowed to retract, it's as if the object is held by the father, is muhzak on it, and that muhzak on the promise, he's holding the promise in his hands. He gives it over to the child will get double share in it. He says, I can learn from our Toises. From Yeshnoi Chalim, Daf Chovkim, Kovim Beis, Dima Matchil, Ochel Kirkun, Vezel Shoyno. Says, you look in our Toises, that's what it says. And he quotes, Vezel Shoyno Toises, this is the language of Toises. Bechol Duchto, in all places, Ovi Makir Kuna Muchzak, they make a family friend as a holder. V'ainu time, and the reason is why. In many places in Shas. Yes. V'ainu time, and the reason is why. Mishum, because the zehu matonum, because gifts of kahuna, of priesthood, it's considered a small gift because it's only your choice who to give. And you're not allowed to retract. If you promise, I'm giving the yeshiva 10%, you cannot have to retract. No, but I want to give it now. Part of it somewhere else is retracting and a prohibition. You're over a lav. You're not allowed to retract. Even with words alone. Even though if he wants to retract, he could retract. In any place, as long as he didn't retract, the father's like a holder, and he gives that inheritance to his kids, and the Bechor will get double share in it. It's considered the father is holding what? He's holding the oath, he's holding the promise, he's holding the object. But he doesn't own it. If he owned it, how can a person can retract? If he has a monetary ownership, it's cut as his, it's not in your hands to retract. It's mine already. No, it's not mine. It's yours. It's the giver, it's not the receiver. But since it's a promise, he has an oath not to retract. Monetary he could, but it'd be a prohibition to retract, so it's considered the father's holding the promise. He has a grip on it, he's muhzak on it, and therefore he gives over as inheritance to his bechor to get double share. V'im ken, now the Ktsoy speaks. He says, I can learn from this Ktsoy says, Mikol sheken olmoso, benishba when he takes an oath, or nosant kiyat kaf, when he took an oath or he gave a hand, liten chevetz ploini, to give a certain gift, a certain object. That the muhzok legabe bechoy is a muhzok reference to a firstborn.
What's that about a certain gift?
What?
What'd you say about a certain gift? It says there's two things. You said one he takes, or one he takes.
There is our Gemara and there's what the Ktsoy wants to draw out of it. Our Gemara says there's a family friend. He didn't have a verbal promise, but it's like a promise, and it's a small gift. You must keep. There's a prohibition not to keep. And that makes the father become a muhzak, and the bechor gets double. It says the same thing is, if there's not a family friends, just somebody took an oath to give a small gift, and then the receiver of that oath died, the firstborn will get double share. Why? Because since he took an oath, he's not allowed to retract. Not even a small gift, it's not an oath. Even a big gift. He took an oath, and therefore he's not allowed to retract. So, if he died, the receiver died, the son will get a double share. The firstborn will get a double share.
And then there was another piece that he added at the end about his hand on it.
What? It says when somebody took an oath, or he took an oath by giving tkiyat kaf. There's two types of oath: verbally in your mouth, or tkiyat kaf. You put your hands on a person's bris milah, or on a sefer Torah. It's called tkiyat kaf. Yes, lite to give chevetz for a certain object. Ava muchzeh bechor is a considered muchzeh bechor. Uma shekosav mo'aril. Comes the Ktsoy, he says, but he found a Mo'aril. Mo'aril is one of the early Achronim, maybe the end of the Rishonim, early Achronim, lived in Germany. All the Ashkenazi minhagim come from the Mo'aril. Uma shekosav Mo'aril, the makir kuno enim shumisu. The Mo'aril learns that Makir Kuno, family friends of Kohanim, that when the receiver dies, he inherits double share to his son. He learns Eino mishimusu. It's not because there's a prohibition, like the way the Ktsois learned, or Tosfot. Elo she'ein yochol la'azor bo. Makir kuna means that the father owns it and he cannot retract. He cannot retract. Not that he could, he cannot. Makir kuna, not as only a prohibition to retract, but you could retract because his monetary is still yours. Monetarily is still yours. No. Makir kuna, the receiver already owns it, and you sheino yochol, you cannot retract. Comes the Ktsois, he says, Tameani, I have a big one in this Moaril. The Muvor Le'ed B'Dirat says, clearly if you read our Tosfot, Shezocharnu V'Peish Nochalim, that we mentioned in Daf Kuf Chov Gimel, the Makir Kuno, Eilo L'Mishumisu. Tosfot says clearly Makir Kuno is only because of prohibition, not because the old person owns it. The Avel Maton Mu'et is a small gift. I don't understand the Ktsois question. Because the Rashbam argues. When he's asking a kasha from Toises and the Maharil, when you have a Rashbam to support the Maharil. And even Toises, it's not so simple what Toises is saying. We're going to see later on. Okay. But that's the Ktso's question. Uma shekosa Maharil sham. The Maharil wrote more. B'makir kuno, Kevon the Makiro, since you recognize and you know you're a friend of this Cohen, Choshi Muchzok, the Maril says that the receiver of the gifts of Makir Kuno, the Cohen, is considered a holder. Vadai, surely. And now he says what you said, Rabbi Yoshua. Ve'yochoi letofse ba'al koro shel hanoisen. He can grab it by force of the giver. Where does it say that? You hear this, Reb Chaim? It says it in Toiser Bometzia. Kedeisa, what is it? There's a phone, he's on the phone. Looks like your phone died, Rabbi Yeshua. No, I know, Rabbi Fish is still on.
No, I'm hearing you. I hear you.
I thought something happened. No. Kedeisa beperek betoises and Bometzia.
What page?
Davov Amud Beis, talk for Cohen. I talk for Kohen and Motzim Yodoi. It says that if the Kohen grabs a doubt Bechoy that was born, you don't take it out of his hands. So Tay says, what do you mean? The Kohen has the right to give it to another Kohen. The Jew has the rights to give it to another person. The Be'olim would want to give it to another Kohen. How can you grab? So he answers, the case of Tok for Kohen is that it's a family friend. Ooh. Almost so the Maril brings down this toys, and he says, we see from Toys of Mumetzid of Vovamon Beis. That the Mamesh Muchzak, that the father, Cohen, which is a friend, family friend, is really a holder monetary. Ki'ilu Gvar Shelo, as if it's already his. What does his means? Ownership. The Tok for Gvar, he already grabbed it. Ein Shom. Ki'ilu. Since it's a family friend, he's allowed to grab. He's muchzok as if it's his. What does that mean? He still has to grab. But if he didn't grab, what happens? If he didn't grab, it will be still his. But in this case, it's a suffix.
In the case of
it was Vadai Cohen, it was a Makire Kuno and a Vadai. If let's Vadai Bechoy and Makire Kuno, I don't need to grab, it's mine. When it's a suffix and it's a Makire Kuno, so then it's as if yours, that allows you, that it gives you permission to grab.
So then the transfer happens without a kinyan.
As if it's yours and you already grabbed it.
So the kinyan is already internalized?
By a doubt, you have to grab physically.
But in this case...
But in our case, which is Vadai Chiyuv, it is a Makir Kuno, it's as if it's his. So according to the Maharil, he doesn't learn like Toys, he learns like the Rashbam. He learns that Makir Kuno is totally his ownership of the father, and he gives a double share to the son because he owns it.
So when the son goes and grabs it, that's the kinyan?
No, it's already there. It's already there. Makir Kuna. Okay, we don't know. Where's the Maisa? We're going to deal with it the next day or two. Today, maybe later. We'll see how it's work. But the Maharil says it's a real ownership. Yes, what do you want to say, Yoel?
I have a question. Are we having here two problems? One of them is the item, the gift is not being grabbed. One, two.
The gift is not what?
It's not being grabbed
Yet.
yet. And the second one that the job for the fulfillment for the poor, it's the father's obligation, but he passed away.
Yeah, but if that's a Bechoir. Here we're not talking about a Bechoir. Here we're talking about a gift of Meiser Truma, the gifts of the animals, of Zvalchai or gifts of fruits. You have to think of Meiser, Truma Meiser. We're just bringing a proof from there, from the story of a Safek Bechoir, that Tosis says, how can a person grab? So yeah, but the Jew has the rights to give it, even if it's a Vadai Bechoir, he has the right to give it to somebody else, so surely by Safek, how can you grab? So Tosis says, Makir Kuna. If it was Vadai, Makir Kuna, he doesn't need to grab it, as if it's his. Now there's a Safek has to grab. But we already see that when it's Vadai and it's Makir Kuna, the person is Muhzak, is a hold of it. So really, if I would say in my mouth, you know what's my mouth? You look like my mouth. I go like this, my father used to say. In one part of my mouth, we have a tosas in Bometzia that says what? Like the Mari, like the Rashbam. So now, if we're going to say the way the simple Iktois reads our Toises, so we have a contradiction in Tois. There's an explanation. So now we're stuck. We're more deep in the mud, as they say. Deeper in the mud. Mud? Good mud, yes. It's a Dead Sea mud.
We have a stick to get out. Because now you have this idea of what was the intention of the giver. If it's Makir Tzuna, so you know that he's going to give it to him. Because the Beis Din now has to decide who's it going to go to, and the only real truth that we have in reality is that he wanted to give it to that Kohen because he's done it before.
Right.
Just like on the Makir Tzuna of these gifts.
Yes.
His intent when he slaughtered that thing was to give it to those people.
Right.
If it wasn't,
And since he had that intention, the Mari learns that the father owns it.
he already got it.
He got it already.
The second he says, I want to give it to him,
Right?
it's gone.
It's gone. He wanted to give it. According to the Ktois, he says, we see from our Toises in the language, it's only a prohibition to retract, but it's not really ownership. Because he says, Toises, if I retract, I'm allowed to retract monetary. Velanius daiti comes to Ktois HaChosh and says, by poor knowledge, the Vadai Makir Kuna Eino Elo Mishumisu. It says, Vadai Makir Kuna is only a prohibition. Like Tois mentioned. And also, just there, they give out talk for Kohen. There we're talking about when a person grabbed already. By a Sofek Bechoin. The Kohen grabbed Kohenim Shechozabo before the father retracted. The Jew retracted. Two anymore. Leisa Bechazor, so you cannot retract. When you're allowed to retract, when it's in my hands. But when he grabs it, it's gone. I need to retract until a minute before he grabbed. After he grabbed, I cannot retract anymore.
Now you have that kinyan.
Now he has a kinyan already. Because family, friend is like a promise. You hear? Michael? Entitled. Promise. It's a promise that they give him all the gifts. The Gvar talk for you already grabbed it. To Leisa Bechazor, there's no more retraction. Came and the Gvar Zochobo since he merited it. Wadin, the same thing as Maton Muertes. Comes the choices, if I'm right, then Makir Kuna is only a promise. And there's a prohibition to retract. And therefore, it's considered the reference to Bechoy as the father's Muhzok. And the Bechoy gets double. Wadin Maton Muertes, same thing as a small gift. The Yochol Lachzo, you could retract. But you're not allowed to retract. If the receiver went by himself without asking questions, he went and he picked it up. So it's not in the hands of the promiser to retract. It's as if he gave me permission to go and acquire it. It's a permission to retract. What is he saying? He's saying, doesn't matter makire kuna or a small gift that you promised to give me. Either way,
you still can retract.
You couldn't retract, but if I grab before you retract, you can't retract it because you gave, as if you gave me permission that I'm allowed to. He says, okay, I promise you, and go pick it up. Come pick it up. So I promise, come pick up the check. So you have to come and pick up the check. So he gave you permission to pick it up. Once you picked it up, you can't retract. This famous story of my father, that he had a boy that was in a guru. And a Jewish boy, and the parents were very wealthy. And they promised the Rosh Yeshiva in those days, talking about in 1975 or 77, whatever it is, he promised Rosh Yeshiva $35,000. In those days, a house, you bought a house in Israel for $5,000. Okay? So $35,000, it's
6 houses.
7 houses. Okay? You can imagine? A lot of money. No, 6 houses, right. So, a lot of money. Anyhow, so he sent Rabbi Schultz. So my father went, he learned all about this guru. He bought his books to understand his personality. And when he met him, he used the word, "Oh, guru, you're a very good person," blah, blah, blah. He starts saying his good points, because he read about him, what he likes to be being heard to people that he's a good man in this specific areas. And then 7, right? So then, after he says, okay, but what about this boy? This Jewish boy that the parents wanted? He says, that boy, that creep, you can take him. Just take him. It's a bum, take him. So my father brought the parents to meet him. And what happened was the mother had a very beautiful ring with a big giant diamonds of, 10, 15 karat. Giant diamonds worth maybe $500,000. A lot, big diamond like this. And the guru was looking at the diamond all the time. And my father understood that for the child, in order to make the deal done, she's going to have to give a ring. So the mother went to the side room. She started to cry. She told her husband, my son is worth more than a diamond. And I wanted to give it to you, but it depends on you because you gave me that gift. You're willing for me to give it. The husband says, yes. And they cried. And she took off the diamond ring off her hands. And she gave it to the guru. And the guru says, take the bum! Okay, so he called the baby. He called the son. And the son comes in. It's a guru camp in some mountains in America. And the Jewish son comes in. And the guru says to the parents, listen, boy, if I tell you right now to take a knife and cut your parents' heart and give it to me, you would do it? He says, yes, I will do it, guru, master. So the guru tells the parents, you still want that child? They said, yes, we want that child. Take the bum. So they took the child and they were crying and he went home and they brought him to yeshiva. But my father told Rabbi Schultz, right now, take a plane to Chicago, to that branch. In those days, they had to, and right away cash the check of the $35,000. Why? Because once they got the child, they will retract from the promise. Sure enough, he flew to Chicago. He came there, let's say it was closed, 2 o'clock. He came there 1:55, 5 minutes before the bank was closed. He went there, he cashed a check, he took the $35,000. When he went out, my father got a phone call. My father was staying in some place, and not in Chicago, somewhere else. And the father of the son calls him up and says, did you cash the check? He says, why? He says, I don't want to give it to you. He says, I'm sorry, I already cashed. I said, okay, have it. The Jew people who want to do it. Okay, you have it, it should be a blessing, and get it. So from a promise to reality, people can retract.